So, we are at the final week of this whole little Halloween thing, and I decided to do a one last video to end this month of this whole thing. I'm going to try to do this next year. I actually really had fun with this. Kind of spooky what if scenarios, where they're actually really nice to do, not doing the basic same old thing. And I can try this every October from now on. It actually seems like a really fun thing to do. But anyway, back to what this video is going to be about. Today, we're going to be talking about what would happen if Jotaro had died in his fight against Kira. Now, to all the JoJo fans, they'll probably be like, why not do something based on Dio or Cars? They seem more like kind of villains that fit a, like, Halloween-themed thing. If I'm being honest, I find serial killers more scarier. Mainly to the fact that Kira feels like a real-life person, where Cars and Dio feel very just cartoonishly evil. They're just very cartoony, so I don't think it'd make any like sense to do them. And plus I think Kira's the best antagonist at the moment. Not seen SBR yet, so my opinion might change. But yeah. Enough said. Today we're going to start and we're going to see what changes if Kira was able to successfully murder Jotaro. So the first scenario we'll go with is like I have not three, but two ideas to go out of it. First off, Jotaro dies to sheer heart attack, and second off, Jotaro dies when they first encounter each other. As for why it's important to talk about two scenarios on Jotaro dying, there's a character who kind of plays a part in this, Koichi. Now, Koichi was actually pretty important to this whole thing of Part 4, and he was involved with Jotaro. The first case scenario, Jotaro dies of sheer heart attack, means Koichi would more than likely end up dying to Kira. Second case scenario, Jotaro dies against Kira. Either he's exploded by Killer Queen or dies from blood loss. And Koichi would actually survive because Jotaro would hold off Kira long enough so he could live. I'm going to talk about the first scenario first and what I think could change. I'll also talk about how other parts would change if, like, with each scenario going by. So, first case scenario, Jotaro's injuries are far worse against your heart attack. He actually dies there. And what would change? Koichi and Kira's thing would more than likely go the same. Koichi would tell him how a kid would be able to figure out his identity. It'd get Kira angry and he'd donut Koichi. But without Jotaro there, or Josuke or Okuyasu, the whole thing with the sock would have just postpone the inevitable. Koichi would unfortunately die there, and no one would stop him. Kira would make his escape, and how would Josuke, Okuyasu, and the others react? Now, Yukiko would actually help in this timeline because, well, I mean, her man died. She ain't gonna let no one get away with that. So, everything like that, Yukiko joins the group. Now, Hayato wouldn't be involved, and would they still have to fight Kira? I think so. In fact, Yukiko may actually just rush in without her own, like without the others, kind of like how Caesar did in part 2. I don't really know how the rest could change. Maybe Joseph can use Hermit Purple, even though I've actually seen a video on why Joseph didn't use Hermit Purple, and that's kind of why he never used it, so in other words, it would have been impossible to track down because of all the other stand users. So, yeah. There's kind of no way that would go down, and the group would have to find a new way to track down Kira. How would the rest of the fights go? Uh, the antagonist battles would probably go the same, except for that one fight during the, what was his name? Yuya, I think. Something like that. Without Koichi, the Josuke might actually die there, but I don't really know. Maybe Yukiko could take his spot, or maybe Okuyasu could. Someone could take Koichi's spot there. But for the final battle, there is no way they're going to win. I'll talk about a scenario where they actually by somehow wins. But if there were to be a case on how they could win, maybe Josuke uses that final bit of crazy diamond power to launch one last rocker bullet, and he shoots Kira in the head. That would have probably been the fastest way to actually deal with Kira. Shoot him in the head with crazy diamond, bada bee, bada boom. It's just that fast. Now let's go to scenario 2. A scenario where Koichi does not die. How would that change? After Jotaro delivers his beatdown, he dies from blood loss, or instead, Kira uses Killer Queen and touches him before he gets knocked out. Kira uses that final bit of power, detonates the switch. Josuke and Okuyasu may look at it, but they won't have enough time to heal him. They notice that Jotaro is missing, Koichi's knocked out, and Kira is still doing what he does. Now, that whole thing would go the same, and the rest of the story would go the same until the final bit. Now, everything else is going the same so far until we get to the final fight, where Jotaro plays a really big important role in this whole thing. If it isn't for Jotaro, they wouldn't stop time and they wouldn't be able to stop Kira. Now, I think Koichi could do the 3 freeze thing, and like I said earlier, Josuke could just use Crazy Diamond, shoot him in the head. It's that easy. Okuyasu could just use the hand and erase him, or Rohan could just have Vince Door. I don't know, it's really easy to actually deal with Kira without time stop. So, in other words, they could beat him if Koichi's alive, but without Koichi, there's no way the group's going to come out of that alive. So, what about the other scenarios? What does Part 5 go? How does Part 6 change? I'm going to talk about how those parts change right now. So, Part 5, Scenario 1, when it comes to Part 5, well, since Koichi's dead in Scenario 1, then they're going to have to replace Koichi for someone else. As for who they're going to replace Koichi with, the options you have are only really these three: Josuke, Okuyasu, and Rohan. And I don't see it being Okuyasu. He was too much of an idiot and to be too reckless. He more than likely would actually die, because there's no real way you could have actually saved him. Like, having him fight Jurno, it would obviously lead to Okuyasu dying with the pain reflection stuff. So it'd only leave Josuke and Rohan. I don't think it'd be Josuke, mainly due to the fact that Araki hates us. Jokes aside, it'd probably be the fact that the Joestars track each other. So it'd be impossible for Josuke to catch Jurno, because Jurno would be able to track him in return. So that'd probably leave Rohan, but I don't know if Rohan would actually go. When it comes to tracking down Jurno, it's probably going to be some random Speedwagon agent. So I don't really see any of the main warriors actually going along to help. What about if we do this? How would the story change when it comes to the whole, like, Jurno versus Popo and etc.? That battle doesn't really change at all. In my opinion, I don't really see that one changing, because Koichi really didn't do much. And that whole thing could just go the same. And Part 5 as a whole would go the same. Same would go with Round 2, like Scenario 2, without Jotaro and Koichi still being alive. Koichi still probably gets sent to Italy, and that whole thing, Part 5 just goes the same. There's kind of nothing that would really change. Either Round 1 or 2, there's nothing much that would change. Koichi didn't really matter in Part 5, and Jotaro didn't really matter in Part 6. Not Part 6, I meant Part 5. Sorry for that typo. But anyway, Jotaro does matter in Part 6, but Koichi does not matter in Part 6. But however, in Part 5, it's Koichi who matters a little more than Jotaro. But however, Part 5 kind of doesn't really change. But now let's go to Part 6, which I kind of referenced earlier. How would it change? How would the story change without Jotaro and Koichi? Well, Pucci would more than likely not go after Jolene. He'd probably do some research and figure out that Jotaro died. Because of that, heaven is now unobtainable. Nobody had Jotaro's memory. The only people who knew were Dio and Jotaro. Since Dio is dead and Jotaro is dead, nobody knows how to attain heaven. At that point, it's impossible. Pucci would have to give up on it and had just to live the rest of his life like that. What about Jolene? She wouldn't get thrown into Green Dolphin because there's no real proof. There's no point of it anymore. Why bother going after Jolene in any case? She has nothing to do with it anymore. With Jotaro being gone, Pucci has no reason to go after Jolene. And what would Jolene do? I could say she might actually live a normal life, where the only reason Jolene didn't was because her dad actually had a reason to see her. Since her dad's dead, there's no real way Jolene's going to have, like, the same way she was. She's actually given an answer on why her dad was never there for her, because he died, so everything like that just kind of, eh. She wouldn't be sulky, or she wouldn't be the way she is currently. But yeah, she'd kind of be a lot more angsty because of it. Like, I mean, her dad's dead. She can't bring him back. So, yeah. She'd probably either live the rest of her life depressed or actually live a normal life and not do any of the delinquent stuff she did. She may actually still hang around with Romeo, and they may actually get married because of that. How would the other, like, Stone Ocean Crew's life go, though? Emporio's got to live the rest of his life in the prison. Same with everyone else. Uh, I mean, not everyone gonna live the rest of their lives in jail. No one actually got a life sentence to my knowledge. There's no reason to bring Foo Fighters back from the dead. The story could probably just focus on Hermes versus Sports Max, when without Jolene, there's no way Hermes is gonna come out alive. She could probably kill herself with Sports Max, and Hermes would actually die there. What would Anasui and Weather do? Without Jolene, Anasui more than likely never meets her, and Anasui probably just serves his sentence out. Because if I remember, he actually didn't get a life sentence, shockingly. And he would probably get out of jail and probably just either live a normal life or something. Weather is an interesting one. I think he has a life sentence, if I remember. It's hard to say what he would do with life after that. Weather would probably just stay in prison. He was an amnesiac, so he really would still be hunting down Poochie. And maybe we can just get Poochie versus Weather instead. I don't really know what else could change. Part 6 would probably change the most because without Jotaro, you have all these changes. Jolene's not involved with the story because she's actually given a reason why her dad's never with her. Hermes dies. Foo Fighters might never exist. And if Foo Fighters does, then I don't really know what would change. Anasui gets to live a normal life, I guess. And Weather versus Poochie happens. Uh, as for the antagonist, I don't even know who the antagonist would fight. Maybe they'd all just be sent for weather report only. I don't think Poochie would view Anasui as a threat because I don't think Anasui now has that reason to try to stop Poochie. Mainly due to the fact that Poochie kind of has no reason to do what he's doing at that point because Jotaro is dead, the memories are long gone, and he's probably just accepted it by now. So, yeah, that would kind of be where the story ends. So, in conclusion, a lot of weird stuff kind of goes on, and believe it or not, a lot of these changes are for the better, actually. You can call me a sadistic or something, you can just call me sadistic if you want, but Jotaro dying in 4 might actually have been the. Like, Jotaro dying to Kira in the beginning of part 4 could have been for the better. I mean, Jolene lives a normal life. Part 5 doesn't change. Uh, yeah, the universe doesn't get resetted. The only real bad thing I guess could happen is that Kira might actually win, or Journal may actually die to Popo. But like, I don't even think Diavolo had the sole motivation to actually rule the world. He just didn't want no one to find his identity. And if Diavolo were to try to ruin the world, then maybe you can get Jolene versus Diavolo. I don't even know. I don't even think she would go as far as to go after him, because she probably wouldn't even have a stand. But yeah, that would kind of be all the changes. Thanks for watching this video, if you actually enjoyed. And, tell me what your Halloween traditions are in the comments. Tell me what you're going to dress up as. Tell me what you are going to do. Will you trick or treat or not? If you don't trick or treat, what are your Halloween traditions? I tend to watch scary movies. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. And, have a nice Halloween. Have a nice early Halloween, actually. And I will see you in my next week's video. Goodbye.